Señoras y señores, mi nombre es Gustavo Ayala, es para mí un gran honor el poder participar en este evento, para lo cual agradezco a la Sociedad Mexicana de Ingeniería Sísmica el haberme invitado a ser copartícipe de la organización del mismo. No puedo iniciar sin disculparme por el retraso que se tenga, lo cual se atribuye o se atribuyó a condiciones de orden técnico sobre los cuales no tenemos nosotros mucho que hacer al respecto. La ocasión es por más importante, no solo para la Sociedad Mexicana de Ingeniería Sísmica, sino también para la comunidad de la ingeniería estructural y sísmica en México, por lo cual había que haberla pensado mucho, dado que los años pasan y cada vez vamos a poder contar con menos opciones de esas personas que deben de ser recipientes de la medalla o de la conferencia Emilio Rosenbluth. Como ustedes saben, el doctor Emilio Rosenbluth es un pilar de la ingeniería estructural mexicana, y por eso es importante que el que sea acreedor a esta conferencia sea un individuo de esa clase. Pensamos por gran tiempo a quién debía de ser la persona más digna para esta ocasión, y concluimos, mi maestro, el profesor Luis Esteba, y un servidor, que había que convencer a Mete Sosen como el conferencista de la conferencia magna Emilio Rosenbluth 2012. No fue difícil convencerlo, lo ha hecho con un magnífico espíritu, y siempre ha mostrado la mayor disposición para que este evento sea un éxito para nuestra sociedad. El tema que nosotros trabajamos es un tema que nos interesa a todos los ingenieros estructuristas, en tanto cuanto podemos situar a nuestro pilar, el doctor Emilio Rosenbluth, dentro del panorama global, mundial, de lo que es hoy por hoy la ingeniería estructural. El profesor Mete Sosen, bien conocido para muchos de ustedes, es definitivamente un referente de la ingeniería estructural y sísmica en el mundo. Un referente no tanto cuanto a lo que él como investigador ha logrado, sino mucho más por lo que sus discípulos han logrado. Es, insisto, un referente que contiene además una componente de modestia al habernos requerido, que no quería que hiciéramos para nada una descripción detallada de los logros que ha tenido en esos dos aspectos. ¿Sí? Sin embargo, quiero resaltar uno que normalmente no tratamos, que es el aspecto humano y su alta preparación cultural. El profesor Mete Sosen es un profesor distinguido, el profesor Kettlewell, de Ingeniería Estructural en la Universidad de Purdue. Es un especialista en la respuesta sísmica de estructuras para efectos de terremotos, explosiones e impacto. Fue parte de los equipos que estudiaron el daño causado al edificio Murray en la ciudad de Oklahoma y al edificio del Pentágono en la ciudad de Washington. El profesor Sosen es miembro de la Academia Nacional de Ingeniería de los Estados Unidos y de la Real Academia Sueca de Ciencias de la Ingeniería. Graduado en la universidad, obtuvo su licenciatura en la Universidad de Boğaziçi en la ciudad de Estambul, en Turquía. y sus estudios de posgrado los realizó en la Universidad de Illinois, en la época, debo de referir esto a la época de oro de la Universidad de Illinois, y creo que él nos va a hacer entender por qué era esa la época de oro de la Universidad de Illinois. Tiene grados honorarios de muy diversas universidades, entre las cuales puedo mencionar la de Boğaziçi en Turquía, de la Universidad Johan Ponarius y de la Universidad Técnica de Georgia, del país Georgia. Es miembro honorario de la Sociedad Turca de Ingenieros, de la Sociedad Americana de Ingenieros Civiles y de la American Concrete Institute. Se ha desempeñado como consultor para las más diversas obras de infraestructura del gobierno de los Estados Unidos, de su ejército, y ha sido consultor para un gran número de los laboratorios de investigación en el vecino país del norte. Para mí, nuevamente, es un honor de contar con nosotros la presencia del del profesor Mete Sosen, y el cual nos ha ofrecido como título para su conferencia Cross, Westergaard, Newmark, Rosenbluth, usos del intelecto en ingeniería estructural. Mete, welcome to Mexico, and we thank you now and then for accepting this invitation. Thank you very much.
Primero, hay que decir que no puedo expresarme en español sobre asuntos técnicos. Es
una debilidad
de mía. And I'm very sorry. And I'm going to speak English, not because I speak English well, but because I fear there are more of you in the audience who speak English than Turkish. I would rather speak Turkish, but I think I shall have to deal with it. Let me tell you that for me this is at once a happy and a sad occasion. It's a happy occasion because I'm in Mexico City. I'm with friends that I haven't seen for a long time, and truly I love the city. But it's a sad occasion because I have to face that we have lost Emilio. When I'm far away from here, I can always pretend. Closer? I don't want to break my teeth. Can't you hear me if I do this?
Yes.
You can hear me. Good. In any case, whatever I was saying, it is difficult because I knew Emilio. Not only is he a superbly competent engineer, he was also a very nice person, as long as you obeyed his standards of conversation. If you didn't, you were in trouble, huh? Because he found your mistakes immediately. In fact, a little while ago we were talking about Gallegos, and I was here in the 60s trying to give a few talks. And at that time I was romantic enough to think I could do part of it in Spanish. And I remember him telling me, why don't you take some lessons so you could say Gallegos instead of Gallegos. Are you from Gallegos? He was a wonderful man. And I don't know what you think of him, what he means to you. But before I came here, I took care to ask a series of friends what they thought of him, what he meant for structural engineering and for earthquake engineering primarily. And I'm not bragging, but I could agree with everything they told me. You know, they told me that he is an engineer with very good judgment, that he was also socially conscious, that he helped set up this wonderful School of Engineering at the university. He did that, did he not? At least he was one of the leaders. He also brought in probabilities in an organized manner into our business, which were not so organized before, even though people have been talking about them. And he worked as an engineer, he worked as a thinker, and he was always a charming speaker as long as you agreed with him. When you disagreed with him, he wasn't as charming. But that's the weakness of people who are very bright. And I am again thinking that I will give you the vision of somebody in the cheap seats in the theater, of some great star on the stage. But I shall do my best. And I think at the end of my talk we can have an argument as to whom he belongs. I think part of him belongs to Urbana, Illinois. And I will try to explain why. Yes, he belongs to you. He's a Chilango. He's a Chilango. But he also belongs to a flow of intellect that used to flow at Urbana, Illinois. Could you have the first slide, which could have been on while I was talking? You know, I didn't know his second name. Most of my Latin friends, I know their names, their second names. I never knew his second name. I found it only now that it was Deutsch. In any case, as I said, I could have guessed at what they told me. But I asked a friend from Bogota as to what he thought of it. And he told me something that I had not thought about, and I could not think about because I'm not a Latino. The next slide, please. My friend Luis Garcia, who's known as Don Turo, told me that Emilio established credibility for Latin American earthquake engineering and gave us the confidence that we could solve our own problems related to earthquake. And I think that is right. Maybe that was his main contribution, that you didn't have to go up to the gringos or to somebody else every time there was a problem, that you could solve it yourselves. So in that respect, he was an icon. He is an icon. Now, I think he's also our icon, and I'm speaking as somebody from Urbana, Illinois, even though I'm not there anymore. But maybe that is what Emilio was, an icon that said, we can do it too, that Latinos can do earthquake engineering as well as anybody else, and he did it. Now, let me try to explain to you the kind of thinking environment that he came from. Monsieur de Tocqueville visited the United States in mid-19th century. They say he went as far west as Detroit in order to understand what was going on in America. He certainly never came to Taos. He stayed up there. And his conclusion was very interesting. He said, hardly anyone in the United States devotes himself to the essentially theoretical and abstract portion of human knowledge. Democracy prepares them to seek useful results from the sciences. And that, after all, is the standard of engineering. Now, Gerardo. In 1872, a small school in the middle of the Midwest, in a small town, the Industrial University of Illinois, that was really a school on agriculture and a little bit in mechanical arts, said in its book, they said, this school is designed to make good, practical engineers. You know, I find that admirable. Today, they would not have said good. They would have said novel or next generation. There would always be some sort of exaggeration. But at that time, they spoke very modestly very simply and said, we're going to produce good, practical engineers. And they did it for almost a century. In Urbana, Illinois, what they were interested in was in the simplicity of complexity. They understood, really from the late 19th century, that a scientist needs to know what he or she knows, but an engineer needs to know what he or she does not know. You know, that's very important, especially you, the young people. Think about it. They teach you things, and you get the feeling it applies to everything. But not really. There are many things that an engineer doesn't know, and he or she must know what those are. And that was the intellectual environment. Let me go to Pythagoras. Why do I go to Pythagoras? Well, that's because he's from Samos Island, a place that I live very close to. But also, you know, he was involved in earthquake engineering. He was the first one who dealt with vibrations, some 400 years ago, before Christ. And he was also a strange character. He covered everything. He wasn't only a mathematician, he was also a religious leader. In fact, they tell me that everything that has been attributed to Christ has been attributed to Pythagoras. He even went to the other world for a while and came back. And evidently he did it by hiding in a cave for a few months, and then coming back and saying he had been to the other side. Brilliant man. Now, and you're also familiar with his triangle, right? The right angle triangle. Although it wasn't his. The Egyptians knew it 3,000 years earlier. But he had the proof. And what I was given when I was in middle school was this. It was a mess. I still remember it. It was painful. But they say that he himself, may I have the next slide please, explained it like this. Take two squares, each being identical to the other, of equal size, and put four equal right-angled triangles into them. The hatched area is what is left from the triangles. And since the triangles are the same in both figures, the hatched areas in the two figures are equal to one another. Now, it so happens that the hatched area in the left figure is the square of the hypotenuse, right? And the hatched areas in the right figure are the squares of the short side and the long side. So it was quite easily demonstrated that, you know, what you know as x squared and y squared is equal to c squared, and he expressed it in a very intellectually simple way. And I really think the man was brilliant, delightful. He did a lot of other things. He also invented irrational numbers, because he thought that all numbers had to be either squared or cubed. But anyway, we don't have to get into that. Have the next one, please. Now, there was, in my opinion, a string of people like that at Illinois. And somehow, just like in ancient times, they sort of picked up from one another. Let me give you an example that is somewhat irrelevant to seismic engineering. There was, in 1913, Mr. Duff Abrams. He was sort of a Pythagorean character because he did a lot of things. He was the man who discovered the relationship between water cement ratio and concrete strength. And he worked on the bond strength of reinforced concrete and produced bulletin number 71 of the Engineering Experiment Station in the year 1913. By the way, off record, I should tell you that all of the bulletins of the University of Illinois Earthquake Engineering, Experimental Station are available on the web. You can download any one of them. You can download this. All you have to do is go to UIUC Ideals. That is all. And it's really a very generous gift to the rest of us. Now, Duff Abrams, in that work that he went over 15 years, tested 1,500 pull-out specimens, like the ones I'm showing up there, and 110 beam tests. He was indefatigable. Oh, no, go ahead. Can you go back, please? Right. Now, but what he was doing was he was pulling from this end and measuring slip at the other end. But he wanted a universal relationship between bond stress and slip that could apply to anything. And this way, he only knew the force here and the slip at the end. And he didn't have instrumentation. Now, what did he do? Brilliant. Next one, please. He tested, and I'm idealizing it, a series of pull-out specimens of different lengths and of different bar sizes, so that the ratio of the length to the diameter remained the same. And he measured the bond stress at certain slips. And now let me give it to you again as simply as I can, please. For example, he had embedment lengths of 3, 6, and 9 units. One more hit, please. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go back. I'm getting ahead of myself. And he plotted the bond stress measured at every length, and then projected it back to the zero axis. And suddenly, with primitive instrumentation, he had gone into the 5th dimension. Because then he knew the bond stress over no length, which is really very much like saying going to the other world and coming back. Brilliant, very simple. Now, in real life, of course, his data were not as smooth, but he had enough intuition that, next one please, he was able to derive that if this is the bond stress and this is slip, now we're talking about a universal relationship like the stress-strain curve. This would be for a deformed bar, and this would be for a plane bar. And you know, his work is rediscovered, or has been rediscovered, every year in the last 15 years by other people who have never looked at Bulletin 71. But if you ever have a problem with bond, go back to Bulletin 71, and you will find a solution there. And there's something else that's interesting. With these curves, he showed that you would never have a uniform bond stress along the bar, whether it is operating in flexure or in direct pull-out test. Right? I mean, that's obvious from that. Now, in your code, what do you assume? It's uniform, right? It's wrong, but it's right. And I'd like to show you that, too. Next one, please. Now, then I come to Hardy Cross, who came to Urbana, Illinois in the year 1921 and left in the year 1937. When he had come there, he really was a disaster. This is a man who had taught English before he decided to become a civil engineer. He had a very broad look at things, which we civil engineers don't like. He had had fights at Brown University, where he had been. He had been, I think, well, I shouldn't say that, but he had lost his job with the railroad people. But Talbot hired him. And he said something that I think is one of the most precious things in structural engineering. And let me see if I can explain it to you. I don't understand it very well, so I may not be able to explain it. But he said, all analyses are based on some assumptions which are not quite in accordance with the facts. And when he says analyses, he means design analyses. What's he saying? He's saying all design analyses are wrong? Is he not? No. And then he said, from this, however, it does not follow that the conclusions of the analysis are not close to the facts. Now, I don't know whether the word oxymoron has a translation into Spanish, But it seems like a contradiction, isn't it? Huh? He says, the analysis is wrong, but the results may be right. And I feel, again, to those of you who are young in your careers, think about that. After all, at one time, we used to do working stress design only. Didn't apply. What do we do today? We use linear analysis for the building, and then use nonlinear analysis for the sections. It's wrong, but it works. Hey, forgive me for taking too much of your time, but look, when I do a little bit of design, but when I design a building, say, such as this, I look at it, and I remove the walls, I remove stuff in the ceiling, I just leave it as either a structural wall and a frame, or just a frame. Now, that's an approximate model, isn't it? In fact, do you ever deal with an exact model? Ever? Well, maybe if it's a flat plate. Then what do? I make an exact analysis of the approximate model. And I always ask my students, is the exact analysis of the approximate model good enough to serve as an approximate analysis of the real structure? Now, I can only ask the question. I don't really have the answer. But in a way, Hardy Cross had anticipated that question. He said, your analysis may be wrong, but the results may be right. You know, when I first went to Illinois as a student, the head of the department, who was Professor Huntington at the time, said, if you're going to be wrong anyway, you should be wrong the easiest way. And I was scandalized. I was shocked. I thought you had to do everything exactly. You know, there's something else that's quite interesting, and I'm starting to ramble, I'm sorry. In my first language, in Turkish, there is no word for exact. And I used to be embarrassed about it, saying, oh, look how sloppy we are. We don't have a word for exact. And then when I read The Decline of Western Civilization by a German author, whose name I can't recall at the moment, I realized that there is nothing that's exact. When you start thinking about it, that piece of, that's timber, isn't it? I think it's timber that you look at, you think it is perfect surface, right? If you look at it under microscopic vision, you'll find that it's full of little hills. And there's nothing that is exact, so you have to be very careful in using the word exact in your analyses. But I give it to you in Spanish, in case I didn't explain it to you enough. And I hope this is Google translation. It's okay.
Read it.
Just to give you a taste of the man, because, you know, he's known mostly for his moment distribution method. But actually, he never liked that. Do you know that? He said, he says, that's an exact analysis for inexact structures. He didn't like his own method. He spent 30 years on arches. His main interest was in concrete arches. And at the end of that, he wrote in a bulletin, again, that's available at the University of Illinois site, that he says, for a large part of the stresses in the arch, there can be practically no uncertainty. And Dr. Esteva would not like it, that there is no uncertainty. There is no uncertainty. And that's the axial force divided by the area of the cross-section. He says, that you know with some sort of exaction. I was looking for a button to push. And about the bending stress, forget it. You don't know what the hell is going on. And in the end, next one please, he said, don't worry about it, just deal with P over A and things will work out. Today, did you ever hear anybody saying something like that? No, you've got to make an exact analysis of what is going on. And this man, after 30 years of trying to find the exact solution, says there is no exact solution.